Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. D'Angelo Russell is expected to return tonight against the Raptors. What's that going to do for the Lakers rotation? We'll tell you next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. I've always got something fresh up for you, and it'll never be behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to check out the show and see the magic happen, Andy. 13,000 subscribers and growing. Interact with each other, leave us comments. We'll be using actually a lot of them on the show today as just an example of how that's so important and why that's so important to engage with that channel. Doing to let everybody know the plan is for us to record something after tonight's game against the Raptors, a game in which D'Angelo Russell is expected to play. So we're going to talk about that in a second. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports book of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. There are a few housekeeping things in terms of injuries around the Western Conference and injuries with the Lakers even. But Andy, this is the headliner. D'Angelo Russell is expected to play against the Raptors, and good Lord, none too soon.
Yeah, they have absolutely been missing D'Angelo Russell's presence. He's been out 6 games. During that period, as we've often pointed out, the offense has been, to put it generously, muddy. A difficult slog. They've been managing to make the best of it. I mean, the way they've performed over the last 10 games, 7-3, multiples without D'Lo, multiples without LeBron, it's been somewhere between admirable and damn near miraculous, but they've also been at times pushing the limits of what you can do. And after a while, the weight starts to grow on you. Getting D'Angelo Russell back, having another guy out there that can help orchestrate the offense, provide spacing, move Dennis Schröder back to the second unit where he is more properly slotted and just more proper slotting across the entire roster beyond the skill set we're going to get into with D'Lo. It makes a huge difference. And frankly, you just want to see more reps of D'Angelo with everybody else. He's only played 4 games as a Laker.
Yeah, and we'll get into this. You know, this theme, I should say, is going to come up a little bit more because we're going to talk about Bamba and his injury here shortly. But you know, it is important for this season. It is important for what the Lakers are trying to do in terms of moving up as high as they can in the standings. They're only Golden State lost on Thursday. The Lakers are only a game and a half behind the Warriors for the 6 seed right now. Only 2 games behind the Clippers for the 5. And the Clippers have won a couple games in a row, but have been all over the map. The Warriors cannot win away from their own building. Dallas has got some, like, there's space, as we keep talking about now. Like, there is room in the Western Conference to rise if you keep winning games. But to your point, like, you need to see the Lakers with D'Angelo Russell, not just for now, but for next year. Like, the Lakers have a big decision to make about Russell and whether or not he's somebody that they want to commit real dollars to. D'Lo's not going to get a max deal like he did the last time around, but he's not going to be free. So if you're going to spend 20-ish million, would you agree that's about the ballpark of what, 20 to 25, probably somewhere in there on Russell? You want to see what it looks like at the very least with Anthony Davis and the rest of the supporting cast. So you got to get back on the floor for that. But so that's a long-term concern. But the short-term is they need the injection of talent and organization and decision-making in their offense so that, like you say, Dennis Schröder can go back to a more natural attacking version of himself as opposed to an orchestrating. He's done fine. That's not the issue. And
Schröder has performed. I mean, I've said before, I think low-key Schröder's actually been having a good season, But over this period, it has not always been perfect with Schröder, and it will look messy. But the guy guts through a lot of bleep.
Absolutely.
And there's a reason that beyond the familiarity he has with Schröder going back to their time together in Atlanta, and they obviously have a strong personal relationship to go with the professional relationship, Schröder fights through stuff. And that is why I think Darvin ultimately trusts him, is he feels like it may start out messy, but by the end, my faith is going to end up getting rewarded.
Yeah. And so, and now it can also with Schröder be paired. When Russell was out, to me, I know not everybody agrees. I'm not sure you entirely agree, but it made sense to me to start Schröder because Reaves, to me, fit better with the second group.
I don't disagree with you at all.
Yeah. So he fit better with that second group as a facilitator and a connector. But even that, I mean, Austin Reaves also has played really well. I mean, really well, making himself a lot of money every game the Lakers play. But he's not a traditional point guard. There are games with ball pressure where, you can feel that. And so not only does Ham have the optionality with both of those guys now functioning as reserves, both of them have very good chances of finishing games, and we'll see what happens with in fourth quarters. I still think Reaves is going to be on the floor for most of them. But you can move Reaves now back into that more natural connector / facilitator, as opposed to the organizer as well. Everybody slots into a better position when Russell is back on the floor.
Yeah, and I mean, and there's two other things that I think they've really been missing with D'Lo. First of all, just especially when LeBron is not there, it's not just the idea that he can create shots for other guys, although until LeBron is back, D'Angelo Russell is the best playmaker on this team. I mean, he's the most seasoned. He's the one with the most experience, and I think credibility going up against starting defenses. Reaves and Schröder, like we've said, have done pretty admirable holding down the fort, but they are, all things being equal, not the guys you want as the primary ones against starting or closing units. So he's going to help other guys get better shots, but he can also create his own shot. And when things start breaking down, it's really helpful to have guys out there that can actually manufacture their own looks when it starts getting messy down the stretch of possessions. The other thing, too, the spacing that D'Lo is going to provide.
That's what I was going to, yeah.
It's not just for the team as a whole, although it's going to help, and it's definitely going to open up even more opportunities for Anthony Davis down low. Like, I was thinking about this. Malik Beasley, I think specifically, is really going to benefit from having D'Lo back there. The 6 games that D'Lo has missed, Malik Beasley has shot 29% from 3. Maybe it's just a pure coincidence, but I can't help but wonder if it's related to not having D'Angelo's own gravity out there, but also the two of them played together for a few seasons in Minnesota. He knows how Beasley wants to get the ball, where he wants to get the ball, the favorite spots. There's like a comfort level and a synergy and just familiarity. I would not be surprised at all if Beasley starts shooting better with D'Lo out there.
I was thinking exactly the same thing in terms of Beasley will benefit. I think it's more the former. I think it really is just about having a little bit more gravity and a little bit more spacing and one more shooter that you really have to honor as a volume shooter. And that's, what Russell functions as. The amount of it to, like, Beasley doesn't need much space to get the ball off. He's always been a streaky shooter and all this, and guys go, shooters go through stretches where they hit 29% and then hit 43% and then 44% and it averages out. You look at the end of the year, they're 37 or whatever it is. But he needs at least a little bit. And that little extra shove, that little extra bit of attention, the fact, you're 8 inches further higher up on the floor than you might otherwise be coming off that screen or whatever it is, Russell's presence will lessen that heat just a little bit. And sometimes that's enough for a shooter like that to get the space and get the rhythm and get the timing that they want. And a more effective Malik Beasley will do wonders for Anthony Davis, who, by the way, doesn't seem like he needs that much help right now. Let's look around. Mo Bamba, we got to talk about Mo Bamba. Bad news for him and the Lakers and his ankle. We'll get to all that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by BetterHelp. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by BetterHelp. Unfortunately, life does not come with a user manual, and what's not working for you, it is normal to feel stuck and confused. Navigating life's challenges, whether professional, personal, emotional, they can bring on anxiety, whether you're talking about a career change, a new relationship, becoming a parent. And I know from personal experience how much therapy has helped me during a difficult period in my life with me and my family, and sitting down and talking with a professional made a huge, huge difference. BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient, accessible anywhere, 100% online, no waiting rooms, no traffic. Plus, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to another therapist anytime. So if you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can help you get there. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. Again, BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn.
Okay, so Mo Bamba. It's going to be no Bamba for the Lakers. That is the most overused joke every time he hurts himself. You go from
Still didn't
Mo
stop
Bamba
it.
out from about a month. It's looking like with that ankle sprain. But we need these injuries to be more dramatic. I think sometimes, like it didn't look like the kind of injury when he did it. Like, oh gosh, he's out for the game and he's limping. But all of a sudden, guys are gone for a month, and you're like, wow. This is an interesting one. The Russell injury was easy to understand the impact. This one is a little different because Bamba had not settled into the rotation. It's, there's no clear nightly role that the Lakers have to replace here. They go back to a situation where they don't have a lot of rim protection on the roster outside of Davis. And obviously it limits Darvin's optionality here. But it's a very different kind of injury, losing him for a month, than it was losing Russell for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Bamba's role had a ceiling in terms of how much he was going to be on the floor to begin with. There were times where I've wondered if Darvin was moving more in a direction towards Wenyen Gabriel. Anyway, I've gone through the game logs, and it's difficult to know exactly for sure. Like, I was trying to look for some trends and I couldn't quite find it. Obviously, Gabriel now is going to get more floor time, and he can be disruptive in the lane, and he certainly, busts ass getting rebounds and stuff like that, but he's not the same type of lane deterrent as Bamba. He certainly is not the stretch threat that Bamba is, much less a volume stretch threat that Bamba is. And for however much you think Bamba's skill set matters on this team, they have nobody else who offers it, because all of the small ball options that they would go for behind Davis, whether you're talking about Gabriel or maybe Jarred Vanderbilt or Rui Hachimura, none of them do the same stuff Bamba does. Like they ultimately were looking for Thomas Bryant in terms of the three-point shot, but a better, or at least a more definitive defensive presence in the middle. Like they were serving the same role, but doing it, I think, very differently. With Bamba out, there's nobody else who can do the things they were looking for. And they're just going to, I guess the plus side is they have experience with how to deal with this when AD's not there, because they've been doing it all year. The downside is it hasn't always been pretty.
Yeah. And look, I mean, it's going to ratchet up the pressure on Anthony Davis to be everywhere defensively. That's the downside. I think the really big downside, I mean, the Lakers have shown they can play defense without Bamba over the last few games. He didn't play the other night, and they've looked good on that side.
His minutes have, even before the injury, his minutes vacillated a lot. They were very all over the place,
which is kind of what you expect. Like, he didn't get a chance to play in the first couple games after the Lakers acquired him, and then he was a matchup to some degree. I'm going to be a matchup dependent player anyway in terms of big minutes versus small minutes, and then he got hurt. So it's like, and with the game he got hurt the other day was right at the beginning of his shift. So just hasn't had a chance to play much. And I go back to what I said about Russell, and like part of what makes it good to get Russell back is not just about this year, but it's about next year. For the Lakers and Bamba, in some ways, it's an even bigger challenge, because let's say Russell had missed another 2.5 weeks. He's still enough of an established commodity in this league that you can look at it and say, I feel relatively confident being able to put the tape together and decide whether Russell's worth this number.
To say nothing of being an established commodity in that building.
Right.
I mean, for you can argue whether that's a good or bad thing, because his exit was a little messy, but nonetheless, they are at least familiar with D'Angelo Russell. Like,
although part of what made it messy was Magic Johnson, and he's gone.
Sure.
So,
but
Bamba is, the Lakers have an option on Bamba for next year. About 10 million, correct? I believe it is
10 million. It's about 10-3 with 300,000 guaranteed.
So they have to make a decision about whether or not they want to keep him. Now there are considerations that go into it that are beyond just, is he worth 10 million? Like, might be nice to just have a contract on the books that's worth $10 million and go from there. Mm-hmm. But in terms of recognizing sort of proactively the value of the guy, is he a good fit here? They're not going to get a chance to see that. They're not. The hope is Bamba can be back maybe before, knock on wood, the play-in, knock on wood, the playoffs. Maybe you get a look at, but out for a month, coming back, hadn't really established himself, needs to work himself back into condition. You're just not going to get the sample size with Bamba this year that I'm sure the Lakers were hoping to see. And that's important because, like, when the Lakers traded for Hachimura, the general consensus was, this is, something that they're interested in for doing for next year and all that kind of stuff. And you and I both said, exactly. You and I both said, we'd be surprised, assuming everybody can kind of come up with a reasonable number, and Hachimura is not asking for 15 or 16 million or whatever it is,
which he's not going to get anywhere anyway. So it doesn't matter.
It only takes one owner. Sure, they'll bring him back for 2 or 3 years at $8 million or $7.5 million, $8 million, whatever it is per. Seems like a no-brainer. But there have been stretches, with this new group in where Hachimura, his role seemed a little bit less. So I was like, maybe it's not guaranteed that they would. You need to see guys in context and really get a chance to play. Now, again, there are benefits to bringing Hachimura back at $7 or $8 million a year for a couple of years that go beyond, is Rui Hachimura worth $8 million? And I think ultimately he's shown enough value that they probably will bring him back or try to. But so much about what the Lakers have done at the deadline and after the deadline is about this year in combination with trying to figure out next year. And every time they lose out on an opportunity to see the next year part, I get a little sad.
Well, this also too is where Bamba's time in Orlando becomes even more problematic, because
he kind of Bamba there.
Well, that organization, to put it mildly, has been an absolute effing mess. And they've been all over the place, and they've been assembling rosters that were island of misfit toy configurations. And Bamba's erratic play over there, this was something we talked about during our Bamba preview. Like, how much of that is Bamba perhaps being overdrafted at 6 a few years ago and just wasn't really worthy of that status, versus Orlando just being a train wreck and him suffering with all of that chaos. So it's like when you talk about,
by the way, and those things are not mutually exclusive, by the way.
No, they're not. But you want to try to get as much information as possible. And, D'Lo, and I think even maybe to a lesser degree, but still tangible enough, Hachimura are more, I think, established commodities that if you had to go without the tape, you would have a more informed opinion of what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Bamba, I think, is more of a legit mystery.
Oh, I would agree. I would agree with that. I mean, the good thing is contextually, he doesn't need to be. We had a similar conversation with Hachimura when he was traded here. But like the good news for the Lakers, the good news for Bamba is once he's been moved from Orlando, the Lakers don't need him to be the guy who was drafted in the high lottery. They just need a backup center.
Yep.
And so, he needs to be good enough to be a backup center who is, worth about $10 million a year. And then, next year, see what happens. Like maybe he's somebody that they would keep around after that. Maybe not. I mean, he is his strengths and weaknesses, I think we saw enough of. Like there were, the one, his best game, for example, was one with the double. You could see the rim protection. You could see, the 3-point shooting and all that kind of stuff, confident 3-point shooter and all that. And you could also see he does get kind of pushed around a lot underneath. Like he's not a sturdy figure. He had the big rebounding game, but he's not necessarily a dominant rebounder. So it's like you can see the pluses and minuses and why ultimately he's not going to be a star and be best suited to be a role-playing backup center, but that's fine. The world needs those things. I do want to mention too, and it's worth talking about some of the happenings around the Western Conference, because injuries aren't just impacting the Lakers. They are impacting other teams. A lot of big injury news this week that will directly and indirectly impact the Lakers as they try to solidify a slot in that top 10 to give themselves a shot at the playoffs. Talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. We are in the home stretch of the NBA season, which makes this the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000. Bonus bets back, even if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, really easy to use. And then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores, threes drained, or get a little spicy with an exclusive bet like the 2x3, 2 3-pointers scored in the first 3 minutes. Plus, FanDuel even allows you to combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payday with the same game parlay. So do not miss out on your chance for a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Okay, so the Lakers taking on the Toronto Raptors tonight. A lot of injury news that is related to the Lakers and their schedule going forward. We'll touch on that in a second. I do want to highlight, we mentioned, the comments on the YouTube page. One really good one today when we talk about next year and the importance of the supporting cast. We spent a lot of Thursday's episode talking about like the LeBron AD core. And are you more confident building around a LeBron or especially an Anthony Davis core, given how he's been playing? Does that make it worth it and all that other kind of stuff? And you brought up the injury thing doesn't go away just because Anthony Davis is playing really well. Xander left a really interesting comment on the YouTube page. I think something that doesn't really get talked about is if most of the guys we got at the trade deadline return next season, the workload for LeBron and AD will be less. The first 2 games after the break, they were able to rest most of, if not all of the fourth quarter, which can help prevent injury. The last season and a half, they've had to play so hard for so many minutes, and that contributed to the injuries. I'll be honest. I had not thought of it in those terms. And we've basically dressed this trade up and these trades up and down and the impact of that. That is a really important and interesting perspective about rolling it back next year with this supporting cast. Is hopefully it would finally actually lighten the load in ways the Lakers been saying they wanted to do for the last couple seasons on those 2 guys.
Yeah, I mean, just one more plus in the column for continuity and a reminder that, taking the load off your stars can be done in ways that doesn't involve just adding another star. You know what I mean? Like there can be more creative and I think maybe even more effective ways to go about doing that. So, like you said, that's a really smart observation by Xander. Good call.
So yeah, we appreciate the people leaving when people leave those comments. Got a lot of really great comments about this question of whether or not LeBron or Anthony Davis should or will have their jerseys retired. I think a lot of them, if I had to summarize, Andy, I think most people kind of agreed with our premise that LeBron probably for sure and Anthony Davis maybe there's a little bit of work to do. Both of them are going to Hall of Fame. Somebody actually asked the question, actually mentioned that we were putting the cart ahead of the horse. Like they have to get in the Hall of Fame first. This is VJ Mexico leaving a comment on the page. Hall of Fame is the first qualification for the right for jerseys to hang in the rafters. Again, I think it's fair to say both of these guys are going to the Hall of Fame. Maybe you're on the fence with LeBron. I'm not. I'm going to go ahead and make him a first ballot guy.
No, at this point, I'm confident enough not just to put the cart, ahead of the horse. If you want to put it that way, I'll go horseless, just all carts. Like they're both going to the Hall of Fame. It's pretty much a given that once you're a top 75 player like AD, or once you lead the league in all-time scoring, you're pretty much going to the Hall. Yeah. So my favorite, though, we put out a poll on the YouTube section about whether or not you think they'll have the jerseys retired. And the categories or responses, both yes, both no. LeBron, yes. AD, no. AD, yes. LeBron, no, which I will admit, I put up AD, yes. LeBron, no. I did this poll. A bit of a goof because, really, I can't possibly think of the argument where AD gets his number retired and LeBron doesn't. Both yes, 25% so far. Both no, 38%. LeBron yes, AD no, 36%. And then 1%, AD yes, LeBron no. To that 1% out there, you are either a just chef's kiss troll and in on, I guess, some type of joke, in which case, nicely done, or you're an idiot. I'll let you decide for yourself.
So I mentioned how tight it is in the Western Conference in the last segment. The injury news around the league this week has been significant. Luka Doncic is banged up in Dallas. He left Dallas's last game with a thigh injury. I believe they were saying that the worst of it he avoided, but he's in a tremendous amount of pain.
Yeah, the MRI was apparently clean,
but a ton of pain for Luka. And as Luka goes, so goes that team. They have not played well following the big Kyrie Irving deal. That has not catapulted them higher in the standings. In fact, they keep dropping. And so you have that situation. You have Brandon Ingram turned an ankle on Thursday in New Orleans last game. And so obviously they're barely hanging in there, and losing Brandon Ingram for any stretch of time would make a slumping team play even worse.
Well, this is interesting too, because he's currently listed as day-to-day with his foot issue, but Jose Alvarado, it's another 2 weeks before he gets reevaluated for a tibia stress reaction. Larry Nance Jr., it's a little bit under a week before he gets reevaluated for an ankle. The Lakers and Pelicans play in 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a legitimate chance that they could be facing a very depleted, if not, downright gutted Pelicans team.
Right.
Which,
and that's
obviously you don't,
and that's one of their road games.
Yeah.
So
you don't root for injury, but that's an opportunity. It just is.
It is. Absolutely. And so that's one of the games the Lakers will play on the road that certainly could get easier, if nothing else. And I think they did just get Valanciunas back in the lineup, but overall that's a team that is very beat up. And along those lines, Andy, the Pelicans, obviously a team that, they are tied statistically going into Friday's games with the Lakers. The Mavericks a game and a half ahead. The Phoenix Suns are well clear of the Lakers. They're 5 games ahead of the Lakers, but Kevin Durant being out for 2 or 3 weeks means that he is certainly very possibly going to miss the game the Lakers play against the Suns on the 22nd. I mean, it's not guaranteed, but they're going to be to say the Suns are going to be cautious with Kevin Durant heading is an understatement. So I wouldn't expect
if he's available for that game, that would be coming in basically at the 2-week mark, maybe even
slightly shorter. So I would expect that he wouldn't be available for that game. So the Lakers now get a little bit of benefit, get a little bit of luck there that they're going to see the Suns, but will miss likely Kevin Durant. So you look at the schedule, it's Toronto tonight. They've been terrible away from their home building. You get the Knicks on Sunday. That's a team that's playing, legitimately well in the West, although they did lose to Sacramento on Thursday. By the way, the Pelicans game was Wednesday. I missed, it was my mistake there. But you get a depleted Pelicans team on Tuesday next week. Then you get the Rockets, who are just, definitionally depleted. A slumping Dallas team with a banged up Luka, then Orlando, the Suns without Kevin Durant, and back to the Thunder, 2 games against the Bulls. It's no games in the NBA are easy. The coaches will tell you this: you got to show up and play. They're all professionals. Blah blah blah. It would be almost impossible to even design a schedule that is plausible and legal that gives the Lakers this many opportunities to win.
Yeah, they just got to cash in on it. I mean, and they've been playing in a way that makes you feel like they aren't just serious. They are cognizant of the idea of, okay, we actually can make this happen. Like, this is not crazy talk or ridiculousness. We actually can get ourselves into the playoff mix, which is incredible when you consider they have not been 500 this whole season.
No, and they're still not.
Nope.
They got to win. If they win 2 more games in a row, they will be 500.
Yep.
For the first time since 0-0. It is remarkable, but the way things are shaping out, like if they can get into the 6, which again, not crazy talk, if they can get into the 6, you're looking at Memphis, perhaps you're looking at maybe Sacramento, maybe Phoenix, which would be kind of an unfortunate bet, or unfortunate deal. But even if it's just, the West is so open. Sacramento's a very good team. Mike Brown has done a great job there. They've won 8 of 10. They've got Sabonis. They've got De'Aaron Fox. It's really cool. I realize it's a traditional rival of the Lakers, but it's cool to see that team and that fan base get rewarded in the way that they have with a good team. And it's good for the West. It's good for the division for the Kings to be good. And ultimately, if the Lakers kind of rejoin that, it'll be fun to have that rivalry back in a meaningful way where these teams can play meaningful games. All of that said, particularly until we learn more about the Suns and learn more about KD and what that's going to look like and how healthy he'll be, there's one dominant team in the Western Conference. That's it. Yeah. The Kings are good, but they're not terrifying. They're just really good. It's Denver, and that's it. That is the only legitimately established high-end team with very little to prove about how high-end they are in the entire conference. Everything else, I think the Clippers could be really good. But every team you look at, you say that team could be pretty good in a series, but I have no idea what they'd be over the entire playoff. Golden State is great at home and they cannot win on the road. So the opportunity is legitimately there. It's ridiculous to say it, like you said, but it's legitimately there.
Well, I mean, it's a combination of things cooperating for them in the conference and, to the Lakers' credit, not giving up.
Yep.
And sometimes things just break your way.
All right, so Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to see the show, comment, participate, and like I said, we love to use everybody's input on the show. It inspires us for topics, ask us questions, all that stuff. We try to engage and answer as much as we can on a daily basis. A reminder that we plan to be back for a mini pod after Friday's game, hopefully a win for the Lakers. But generally speaking, I would say the plan for most game nights, even on weekends, will be to try to record something. So, check in after games. And we certainly intend to have something for you most of those nights. Certainly during the week, we will anyway. It's a 5-day-a-week show. And all right, we'll see everybody after the game.